And as a university student, I'm sure we've all had a moment doing a job where we don't really know what we're doing, or we're struggling to learn. That's when you encounter challenges and new ventures in your life. And that's the theme. All the panelists have had experiences where they didn't know what to expect from it, but they took advantage of the situation and used it to become better as sport industry professionals. Hayley, I guess we'll start with you. You joined Special Olympics Canada as an intern this year. How has that new experience been, and why did you decide to complete an internship in the nonprofit sector?
I worked at Special Olympics Ontario this winter. It was amazing. That's what I wanted to do in my fourth year. That's who I wanted to intern with. So I was super proud of myself for achieving that. Got the opportunity to run events on my own. So without the help of my supervisor, they were just there for support. I learned new things to get involved with departments I was not directly associated with. So for example, my official role was school programs coordinator. So that means that I helped out with all the sports qualifiers leading up to the Kingston 2020 school championships, which unfortunately got canceled due to COVID, but it's fine. But I was able to work on other things. So for example, I worked with the marketing department, helping them with the Healthy Athletes Task Force. So in this case with COVID, we made up exercises for athletes to do while they're at home, meal plans, stuff like that, anything to help them out. Why I decided to work with a nonprofit. I've had a lot of experience working in professional leagues. So I worked with the Bulldogs, the Ticats, and the River Lions. So I thought it'd be nice to switch it up and have a change of industries. And like I said, that's where I wanted to be, in a nonprofit with Special Olympics. And I've always been a helpful person. I feel like the morale is different there. You're working to, make a difference in people's lives rather than work for profit. And I've always been big on community relations, and that's where I see myself in the future in the sports industry. So I thought that'd be the best to gain experience and help me out in the future.
Move on to you, Keegan. You recently announced that you'll be pursuing your master's degree. Again, no big deal. What decision-making process did you take to consider this option and eventually pursue?
The process was a bit weird for myself. I got into fourth year. I'd done roles. I'd worked in SPMA Council with marketing and sales. I'd done other roles kind of in the vicinity of that. But I still didn't feel like I could go into a job and just answer every question that was thrown at me. I know it's always good, and I feel comfortable kind of sometimes faking it till you make it, like Will mentioned eloquently earlier. But I don't like having to do that, I like having an answer. So kind of, it was almost this pursuit of knowledge. Went to the graduate meeting. Dr. Narain was there. He said he was interested in marketing consumer behavior. That completely aligned with the type of interest I had. Me and him, right after the meeting, had like a 30-minute chat, and we just hit it off really well. And then we kept coming back to this idea of me doing my master's and me working with him with a focus on doing an applied master's. And it just kind of worked out amazingly. He was looking for a grad student, I was looking for a supervisor, both within the same kind of area, both doing applied research. So fortunately, well, I guess not fortunately, but with COVID, there's not going to be that many opportunities. So it kind of works out well in my favor. So I'm getting to do something that I love to do. I'm going to get to do more research within consumer behavior. Sport is just fascinating, right? People act like complete idiots when you go to games. And it's how does that all happen? What informs that? So it's kind of this passion and this hopefully idea to be able to answer all the questions that I want to be able to answer.
It's funny where passion takes you, my passion is talking to people, and no idea that.
And here we are.
Along, and then boom, 15 episodes later, and here I am babbling away, and some people are just looking at this saying, "Will this guy shut up already?"
If you have that passion and you kind of make a road plan and you go about it, you ask the right questions and you kind of get out of your comfort zone and set out to do it, then things happen, right? I always say if you put in the time and effort and have that like underlying kind of draw to you, which is that passion, then you're going to be successful more often than not. And you definitely have that.
That's master's level
Stop.
right there. You got that for free.
Moving on to Erin here. Tell us about the transition between Algonquin College to Brock University. What was the process like, and were there any hurdles you had to overcome to ensure a smooth transition?
For me to address the question, I should probably speak about what I did at Algonquin. So when I was there, like not everybody here knows, I don't think, I did paramedics first. Yeah, like that program was unreal. I loved it. The people that I met were amazing. I did very well in the program, but it wasn't a career for me. With that program, I learned a lot about myself from a confidence point of view. And for you to do that job, you have to have a lot of confidence. And when I was learning, I had to have a lot of confidence. So going into a program where having a lot of confidence is probably not your best option in sport management, because you can't have too big of a head going into it. It was a learning curve, massive. And for me to be at Brock in a completely different program, a business program, opposed to something very applicable, I didn't do as well as I thought I would initially, and I had to regain confidence in the skills that I did have and move forward from that. And I think I was my biggest hurdle essentially for my first semester, and then moving on from there, I really got my stuff together.
Confidence and self-esteem are bigger than you think in this program and in the industry, because you're gonna probably get shut down or told no more times than people think you're going to do. The sooner you adapt to the failures and use them to better yourself, the better you're going to be. Well, again, with your role at the basketball team, they've gone through a lot of changes in recent years, including and correct me if I'm wrong, a change in the head coaching departments. What were some strategies you used to adapt to change in order to ensure you were fulfilling the role the best that you could?
With the men's team, we have had a lot of turnover in the past couple of years. Coach Charles Kissy, who brought me on in my first year, I was with him for a couple of years, and then we transitioned into my third year with Coach Trivedi, who's now an assistant with the University of Toronto, and now we currently have Coach Willie Maniga, and it's been different. Each coach sort of runs their ship in their own unique way. And by nature of being in operations, I was ready for that. You kind of learn to adapt to the situations that are presented in front of you. And the biggest thing I think is that I come into every role with that I do, whether it's, Brock basketball, Canada basketball, I don't have all the answers. I just don't. And I think it's impossible to expect anyone to have all the answers. That's why you build a team around you and a support system that can help support you answer those questions. And so with every coach, I've learned various different things, and I am where I am because of them and because I've learned so much from them over time. But it's just a matter of acknowledging that you may not, no matter how experienced you are, you don't have all the answers, and being humble enough to stand up and say, what do you think, and asking for others' opinions. And that's what I think, that mentality served me well when I was at Canada basketball. And as I move forward in my time, just understanding that I don't have all the answers, but I know where to find them and who to ask. And I think that's a really good mindset to go forward with.
Continuous learning is really the key in any job setting, really. If you're not willing to be humble and say, okay, there are a couple times where I might screw up, then you're probably not going to do as well as you think. And believe me, with this podcast, there was a lot of learning experiences. Like when I started with this, I literally had no idea how to produce an episode, how to record it, how to edit, yada, 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 yada. Throughout your time at the program, what's one skill or virtue that you came to learn about yourself?
Kind of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? even like I consider myself to be introverted, right? Like doing some things completely is out of my comfort zone. And like, I'll get the pits sweating or something. It'll be completely gross. But then you do it another time, and kind of like Will's analogy, you kind of stretch, you get more used to it, and then you kind of get accustomed to it, and you're no longer scared to go into those situations. So in your first year, like, don't hold back. Like, sit with new people, like, get to know your classmates, like, speak with the profs, do things that maybe get your pits a bit sweaty, but that are going to pay off in the long run.
My biggest mistake was I didn't really get involved until third year, I'd say. Like, second year, I was a big part of the baseball team. But other than that, I didn't really go forward with that for unrelated reasons. Once I got involved in third year, I felt like I was a bigger part of the community and a bigger part of our program. Mm-hmm. So like stepping out of that comfort zone and actually pushing myself to do something really paid off, I think, in the long run.
I look at Erin and I see Ricky Anderson.
Last year I hit a home run for the first time, and I thought I was gonna cry.
For me, I feel like I've learned to be very ambitious. During my time at Brock, I took on a lot. It's nice to have goals, and especially like I mentioned before, even with my internship, I wanted to be with Special Olympics, and I achieved that. So it's good to have goals and good to have ambitions. Even if you set those out, you don't need to do a 10-year plan. You can just have short-term goals, long-term goals, whatever you want. But it's good to have something to, reach in the future.
For me, I think one of the main things that I learned about myself is just to be resilient in no matter what comes your way. Resiliency, I think, is super important no matter what type of field that you go into. Operations is extremely important. Stuff goes wrong. And funny enough, the best days that I have in my job are when no one notices me. And if I am noticed, that's not good. But in terms of resiliency as well, just in my professional life, there's like a common misconception that I have my entire life figured out, which is completely whack. Like I'm like everyone else. Like, I mean, I know we're on this podcast, but I can't speak for everyone, but me, I'm still transitioning, I'm moving, and I don't know what I'm doing. And, along with this COVID stuff, I had something lined up in September that, was ready to go. And all of a sudden, sort of your feet get, the rug under your feet gets pulled from under you, and sort of what do you do now? Right. That contingency planning, that's where sort of my operations background kind of served me well. In my third year before I started Canada basketball, I actually thought I was up for a job, that I had it, and I wasn't offered the position. And so then that threw me in a whirlwind. And, just about coming out on top was, you can fall down as many times as you want, but it's about how you get back up. And I think that personally, I found that myself to be extremely resilient and, turning bad situations and, turning them positively for myself.
Not just school. You have to think about your family and your working life. And I planned it so that I would have my internship at the end of my schooling. I also took fewer courses every year so that I could work more. So like I planned out my entire my undergrad just so that I knew what I was doing in the future. And you just got to roll with the punches. You really can't estimate how things are going to go, and this is nothing that anybody could have ever guessed would be happening right now.
This is a great example of being resilient.
Yeah, honestly.
The final question of this episode here, it's going on to the lighter side here. Are there any funny stories throughout your time at Brock that you can share on air? You know what? Let me jump into this one just to spice things up. This first year, and a buddy of mine who I've known since I don't know, since forever. We bought tickets for the Steel Blade Classic. So we get there, and after like literally running towards the Brock terminal to catch our bus, we literally left 5 seconds after we got on. We go in and like it's packed, and we're like, oh crap, we're gonna have to sit in like the last row or something. But in the corner of my eye, I look down and I'm like, there's a couple empty seats down here. So I go down, and before I know it, 2 empty seats front row behind the net. I asked the people, I says to the people beside me, are these taken? They says to me, no. So I saved those seats. And my friend, meanwhile, was getting some drinks, and he returned just before the puck, just after the puck dropped. As soon as he sits down, 2-on-1s from Brock towards the other towards where we were sitting. Goal. I have never been in a hockey arena that was as loud as that as that goal. It was unbelievable, and really my first introduction to university sport. You couldn't hear yourself over the noise. So sort of a funny way of how it started, but the ending was even crazier. And Brock went over Guelph that year, so that's another thing.
That's always good. So before I went on exchange this year, like I came down to Brock, and I wanted to like see a few people just before I left, you know. So I sent a text to Hayley and Sky, who's our other friend, and I was like, "Yo, let's hang out." And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And I'd been to Hayley's house one time, so I thought I knew where it was, but
keep in mind he only lives 2 streets behind me.
Yeah, so I drive over to Hayley's house, pick up Sky on the way, get there, and I just knock on the door, and I see this guy there. I'm like, oh, it must be one of Hayley's roommates. I'm like, hey, is Hayley in? And they're like, yeah, come in. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like just standing in their living room. I'm just making like small talk, and they're kind of giving me this weird face, and they're like, yeah, so do you have like the pizza? And I'm like, what? I'm looking for Hayley. So I was in the wrong house. I basically invited myself into the wrong house. And that happened again this past year. But
yeah, he did it twice.
As I mentioned earlier, when I was in second year, I did operations for the men's baseball team. And Mark LePage was the coach. And if anybody knows Mark, he is in love with Starbucks. I didn't know Mark. I did not know this. So I was told, Erin, can you go and get like 6 coffees, blah, blah, this, and this. Right down the road is Tim Hortons. So I went to Tim Hortons, rookie move, clearly. And show up. I had all this coffee in my hand, and he goes, what is that trash? And my best friend at the time, Noah, was on the baseball team. He was the captain, and he goes, she's not trash. Her name's Erin. Everybody started ripping on me, so that's when I started to become friends with them, but I ended up drinking 4 cups of coffee that day just because it was there and nobody was willing to drink it, and I had to drive across town to get Starbucks. It was a day.
Will, why don't you tell the one about me and you doing the Smart Start interview process that we thought we killed? Remember when we did the Smart Start interview, and like me and you, we get there and we're in the same group, and it's like this huge kind of focus group atmosphere. Yeah. And like, because me and Will are like decent buddies, like we're good buddies. We get into it and we're just in this like confident groove, you know? Like we're invincible. Like we're doing these interviews, we're like just communicating with people, having a fun time. And we're like, oh, we killed this. We were just, mwah. And then neither of us heard back. It was rough. It was very rough.
It is what it is. I mean, you can't get them all, you know? Yeah. Even Michael Jordan has off days. You know, me and Keegan, as good as we are, we have our off days. So you know, gotta
Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. No, I'm kidding.
They overcame it.
Last summer, 2019, I was with Canada Basketball in the men's high performance department. So, I got to run operations, run training camp, and so I worked with all the age group teams. But it came to a time when at the end of the summer, we got to work with our senior men's team. So our NBA players, the coaching staff is the Raptors coaching staff. Pretty high level stuff. And so I actually decided to fly myself out to Winnipeg because they didn't have the money to, being an NSO. So I wanted the experience, even though it was only for a day. They paid for my hotel, so I went out and I helped them run operations and do the airport transfer, get an exhibition game and everything. So that was a lot of fun. But at the hotel, actually, I was walking around, and for me, I grew up around music. I play piano, guitar, and I sing as well a little bit. So it was just sort of, it's been my release ever since, I've been young. So even to nationals this year with the ladies, I brought my guitar just because I knew I was going to be away for 5 days. And so in this particular case, I was in Winnipeg and I walked past one of the banquet rooms and I saw a piano. So I started playing and I was just going at it and, just minding my own business. And then after I finished playing whatever it was, I hear from behind me, can you play that again real quick? And I'm like, huh, who's talking to me? So I turn around and it's Nick Nurse. NBA champion Nick Nurse.
No.
So, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll play that. And then me and him started playing piano for about like half an hour before we played Nigeria later that day. So it's nice because because for him it's similar. He walked around with his guitars. Music is a similar type of release for him, to mental stress reliever for him. And
That's
so
terrible.
it was really sick. Sort of, I can now tell people that I got to play, piano with Nick Nurse, the head coach of the NBA champions. So that's kind of
That's dope. That's dope.
not as funny, but just kind of interesting.
I don't know if I have a funny story, but I have a funny recommendation for any STEAM student. The 3P55 wrestling course.
Yeah.
I've heard of this.
Course is a treat. If you want the best night of your life, you'll take this course. It's all online, so keep that in mind. It's all online, but you do have to go to a wrestling event at the end of the semester, and you get to watch all these wrestlers that wrestle for free. Or, well, you have to pay a fee, actually, so forgot about that part. But you get to watch them all wrestle, and it is so funny. So funny. Probably the best night of my life. Like, I have videos. This was so funny. I can't even. It was amazing.
Best night of your life.
Best night.
I might consider that.
You're hearing this first right here for the first time here. Keegan Dalal will be wrestling next year at that event for the course that you take it.
Thank you to all members of this panel for joining, laying their insight, and sharing some great stories. It really was a treat to hear what your STEAM experiences were like, and I hope students can take advantage of this podcast and maybe use some of their tips down the line. It really has been one heck of a ride, and we will strive to produce more amazing content for you next year. So stay tuned for that. But on that note, that concludes the season for the SPMA Council podcast. So on behalf of SPMA Council, I'm William Ward saying thank you, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless. Stay classy, and thanks again. Cheers.